This episode of the podcast is brought to you by our new sponsor, Impact Tactical. They're a tactical outfitter for first responders and military. Me, guys, personally, I can vouch for them and their quality service. I've used them for the last 11 years of my career. Be sure to check them out at impacttactical.com. That's MPAK tactical.com, and be sure to tell them that Two Cops One Donut sent you. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by HRH Combat Arms. They can turn your vision into reality. They specialize in gunsmithing and Cerakoting. Your Cerakote specialist is Air Force veteran and retired police sergeant Paul Ware, aka the Sarge. He can Cerakote your firearms, auto parts, tools, even your sports equipment. This veteran-owned business is located at 5025 Saunders Suite 103, Fort Worth, Texas 76119. You can call them at 682-304-0363, and you can find them online at www.hrhcombatarms.com. That's www.hrhcombatarms.com. All right, welcome back. I am your host, Eric Levine, and this is my podcast, Two Cops, One Donut. For everybody out there, I got me a new special guest outside of police work. So if you're going to listen to this podcast, just know that it's not a cop this time, which tends to be it's the par. So I have with me Miss Latasha Jackson-McDougle. How are you, ma'am?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
So you were recommended to me by Michelle Morgan, who does the One Safe Place. It's a domestic violence center for victims that are victims of domestic violence. And we got to talking. She's a very strong personality like me. By the way, you can swear, you can drink on this podcast, do whatever you want. There's no limit. So have fun. This could be a real long conversation. It could be a short 20-minute talk. It's just whatever you're feeling. It's however we're vibing. So, so the whole point of this podcast is education, bridging the gap between police and the community through long-term discussions and humanizing. Trying to put a face on all sides, not just cops, not just firefighters, first responders, but the people we serve as well. I need to know your perspective on police. I need to know your perspective on what domestic violence, which is something we're going to talk about, which is your specialty, and things of that nature. So, but before we get into that, ma'am, and we start talking about Cheryl's voice and all that cool stuff, where are you from? Where did you grow up? What's your education level?
I am from Fort Worth, Texas. I am a graduate of Arlington Heights High School, class of 2001. I'm going to date myself.
Hey, we graduated the same year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yep. So I'm from Fort Worth, Texas. I live in the city. I'm very passionate about, living here in the city. Education-wise, I have a bachelor's in social work. I have a master's in social work and a master's in criminal justice. And I'm currently working on my dissertation part at Grand Canyon University.
Very nice. You got a master's in criminal justice?
Yes, I got my master's. I got I got my bachelor's and my two masters at University of Texas in Arlington.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah, I did my master's in criminal justice and criminology through TCU. And I got made fun of a lot by my friends. They're like, dude, that's such a wasted degree. And I'm like, I don't think it is.
No, it's not. When I was working, so once I graduated with my master's, I got honors in both of my masters, and I was asked to be an adjunct at UTA. And I kind of advocated for the domestic violence, the intimate partner violence course for criminal justice majors, because really I thought about police officers, to be honest, how it would be helpful.
Okay.
And so it's a big thing.
I'm looking all shiny in this camera right here, so should have put makeup on.
I don't have makeup on, you'll be fine.
All right, we'll be good. That's why this is man makeup. Beards are man makeup. That's how we cover our face. All right. So growing up, what was on the horizon for you? Like what was your vision of where your career, what type of career did you want and all of that?
Well, so I didn't have a typical childhood growing up. Unfortunately, I witnessed the murder of my mother and the suicide of my father, and I was left for dead right here in Fort Worth in the alley by my father at 18 months. So immediately I was orphaned, raised by my grandparents, and really I just didn't know what life had for me just because I was struggling with a lot of health issues because of the trauma. I was struggling with just, trying to understand things. I found an old letter I had when I was a kid that my spelling was all bad and I just struggled really hard. And so, with the help and love of my grandparents and the education system, the public education system at that time, I was able to, overcome that. I started doing, therapy and those types of things. And I kind of, at first, I envisioned that I wanted to be the next Whitney Houston. I can't sing, but I thought in my mind I could.
You and me both, girl.
But I still love karaoke. So I go and in my mind, I'm like, I'm going to be Whitney. So that was kind of what I wanted to do. And then I did a lot of acting and, I said, okay, maybe I'll be Maya Angelou or something. So I kind of went on this journey of figuring out what I wanted to do. Then eventually I landed on wanting to serve others. Cause my grandmother taught us, even though we were poor, we had food stamps. I was on government assistance, housing, all of that, anything you could possibly think of. Anything that the government was providing, we had because I was orphaned. And so we didn't have a lot of money growing up, but my grandmother still taught us how to create things to give to others and provide for others, even though we had less then. And so that's when I really had a heart of giving. And that's kind of where social work started to come in. But the criminal justice side of it, really, I turned 18, went off to college, came home because my grandmother got sick. And I met a guy at a club. I met a guy at a club and I was working at the mall doing, service stuff. Customer service. I'm a very friendly person. And so customer service kind of was easy. And he said, why are you doing this? You can be, get a job at the sheriff department. I'm like, me? The sheriff department? So sure, I applied. I became a booking clerk at the sheriff department, quickly promoted 3-4 different times, working as a jailer, working in security control, just different things. And that's when I realized that, okay, maybe criminal justice is something I want to do. And it kind of meets social work. And so I kind of made it work in my mind that I wanted to do that. So I have years working at the sheriff department. And then I transitioned to, actually, when I was working at the sheriff department and going to school, I wanted to be a lawyer. And it wasn't until we had a case that the person was wrongfully convicted. And it kind of messed my world up because I was kind of shaken by that. I'm like, oh God, what if I was that attorney, And so I kind of started figuring out more of the social work side of things and how I could serve in that way. And so I had to leave the sheriff department to do an internship for my social work degree. Once I did that, I was off to probation. That's when I worked with Judge Carr's court, learning about sex trafficking, and I became an expert in sex trafficking during that time. And so that's kind of when domestic violence started coming in grad school, when one of my mentors, she kind of asked me about, because I never talked about the loss of my mom and the trauma I was dealing with. I didn't talk about any of it because I didn't want to. And she pulled me to the side and said, Latasha, you have a lot that you're struggling with and you need to start going to therapy and deal with it. And so when I did a full investigation on the death of my mother and discovered, at that time it was 84, law enforcement failed her, the prosecution's office failed her. And so I said, okay, what can I do to serve in this area? And I kind of went on this whole trailblaze of asking questions, asking neighbors and all these people of what they knew about my mother, and figuring out what we could do in here in Tarrant County to better in that area. So that's how I kind of slip and fell into the world of criminal
So
justice.
I wanna go back and visit something you said. The courts and the police failed your mom.
Yes.
Obviously police work ain't perfect, because if it
No.
was, I wouldn't have to do a podcast. And
Right.
I'm trying to educate. And now we're talking
Right.
in the 80s, early
Yes.
80s.
We're
So
talking about 84. I mean,
yeah.
and domestic violence had really just became a national even holiday. Like people really weren't talking about it, especially in the Black community. This happened in the morning side of the area. It wasn't the greatest area. They had, murders in the area, but people, remember this particular homicide and suicide because it was just something that didn't happen in the Black community, especially during that time. And so in 84, they were just still trying to figure it out, to be honest. And so when I'm reading these reports, my mom would call the police and they literally were right in here. Statements. Oh, she's going to go back. We just told her to come back tomorrow type of thing. And she couldn't make it till tomorrow because he had already kidnapped her at that point. But she had to call previous times and, similar situation where they didn't take immediate action like they do now. We came a long way for sure. Do we have improvement? Absolutely. But definitely it's nothing like it was.
That's what I was going to get to. Have we at least learned from that time to today, in your opinion, for what obviously you're an expert when it comes to this, not only through your experience, through your investigation work, on your own family history, but then through your professional work as well. So with that said, what's your thoughts and opinions right now about how police, social work, are handling domestic violence?
So I still feel there's room. I think it's better than 84. True. However, I do, and that's been my prayer and my active work of wanting consistency as far as amongst all the different police departments, because we have a lot of them. And, I also work in criminal courts. And sometimes I see cases or I may hear a victim could send me a message for Cheryl's Voice and say, I called the police, they came, they, started talking to my abuser about football and I'm like, what? That's it's 2022, stuff like that happens. And I don't think that some of the people that respond to those calls really realize the seriousness of it. And then it kind of scares me because domestic violence calls are, really high risk for you guys.
Yes.
That, go out there. I mean, those are the calls that really could take your life. And so it hurts me when I hear, a victim kind of telling me that, the police officer was not really helpful, because I'm like, man, they could have got hurt, just showing up like that and not really understanding the seriousness of it. So I do think that we still have, work to do. I think it's getting a lot better because they are reaching out. I mean, I have police departments or conferences that reach out to me asking me, hey, can you come and talk? Can you come do a workshop educating our police officers, educating our criminal justice, judges and attorneys? It's kind of like a whole group that, has to continue getting education. And I understand why they would reach out to me, because I am a survivor and I'm speaking from the child left behind, because most people don't think that, it affects us, but it does. So I do think there's, improvement, but I do continue to work on more improvement.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm hearing you correctly, some of the improvements that police side could be making is with the standardization. Needs some sort of standardization across the board versus, this department handles domestic violence and stuff this way versus the city that's right next door to that one. They handle it a completely different way.
Exactly.
So it's hard to keep track, at least for people like you. Piece of dust flying in my face. And in getting the same product results that you're looking for. for your victims.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. I want everyone to call in and say, wow, this officer was very helpful. And unfortunately, we don't get that.
Right.
Depending on where they're located, they may not get service. And then, sometimes if it's a really small town and maybe let's say the guy is, some type of public official or firefighter or something like that. Matter of fact, I have recently had someone send me a message like, I'm scared. My husband's a firefighter, and every time we call the police, they're just really not helping me. And it's sad to hear something like that. And I try to encourage her that the police is there to help you, but it's hard to do that when they're coming in saying something opposite. So I believe the standardization. If everyone is kind of educating, all the police officers are having the same kind of education about domestic violence and they're all kind of responding the same way. I believe that will be so much better. So much better. And victims would actually call a lot sooner before it gets to the point to where they're shooting at the police when they get there. They'll probably call, just when there's something, when the person is making a threat, they will feel comfortable to call because they know that they're going to get some help versus not calling.
Yeah. One of the things I'll give to you from a police perspective, when you do hear like, well, they were talking about football, in the deal with the firefighter, like here's the bad part. We do tend to favor first responders, not in I don't want to say an unfair manner, benefit of the doubt. We tend to give benefit of the doubt. And it's the same across any career. Like if you work at Subway and, one of your fellow workers comes in with their girlfriend and they're not working, you take care of them like that. And I say from experience, because I worked at Subway at one point. So that happens. And I don't want people to sit there and think that we don't recognize that as police. Like, yeah, we see it. And is it right? Probably not.
Right.
But I think it's human nature, and it's a hard thing to even catch yourself doing it. You may not even be cognizant that you're doing that. And we want to give first responders the benefit of the doubt anyway, because they've already cleared all these background checks and all, so they should know how to do the right thing and whatnot.
Right.
But when it comes to domestic violence, that's not the case. Doesn't matter who everybody is can be capable of it.
Right. Absolutely. And, honestly, one of the things that, I worked in that culture, working at the sheriff department, we have each other's back. The number one priority is going home at the end of the day. And so regardless of what, the person has going on. And so I understand that culture, and I'm kind of glad I had that experience, because when someone's coming telling me, I'm like explaining to them that, the culture is like, your family. Especially if you're working shift work. I used to work on second shift. So most of my day was spent with those, all of us detention officers. And so we were family. And so you try to look out for each other. I think that, the question becomes, how can we look better, look out for the other person, So if the police is showing up and the person is a firefighter, you can, that's your brother. Great. But hold them accountable.
Yes.
And that's the thing, and we have to continue working on accountability. That's one of my biggest things. I'm like, accountable. Yeah.
And then it's the dangerous part for cops. And I try to tell young officers this. I'm like, listen, you already know a domestic violence call is the most serious. It's the most dangerous for us, statistically speaking. The numbers back that up. Officers that are killed, from gunfire and stuff like that in line of duty, more often than not, are from a domestic violence like suspect at some point. So it's important to know that. And when you show up to a domestic violence call and you don't handle it, and then you go home and that person ends up being killed, there's your accountability. Like, that's not the accountability you want to have.
Not at all.
So take care of it the first time. If you think there's any continuance of violence that's possible, any of that, then you gotta play it safe. It's just like if somebody requests an ambulance when you're getting ready to arrest them. It's a pain in the butt. It sucks. You got to wait while they get jailitis 9 out of 10 times, that's what it is. But play it safe, call an ambulance, have them check him out, say he's good to go, and get out of there. Same with a DV call. You want to make sure you handle it appropriately and go through your due process. Now, the other part that I would like to get to, like maybe help for your clarification or maybe a perspective you haven't considered, when police are there and they're talking football and stuff like that, you try in any way you can to connect on a lower level, to create rapport, create a relationship. So I don't know, that's got to suck to hear from a victim standpoint. Like, I don't want to call a cop to help me, and then he's over there talking football with him. But I also want victims to understand, if any victims listen to this, like it's a way to generate a conversation to get them to lower their guard and start getting real answers. That's just one technique.
And that makes sense. De-escalating. I mean, that's your job.
Yes.
That's a great way to de-escalate, especially with a domestic violence call. And so, and to your point, one of the things as an educator and an advocator, we kind of go back to the victims and say, hey, that's, I know it sounds sucky, but this is why, and we show them, I know I do, I can't speak for everyone, but I make sure I show them the statistics of, how high risk those calls are for police and those types of things. So, but I still encourage them to not be in fear of calling the police, because it's so essential to do that. And so when I educate, I do, provide that information.
Yeah. Another good thing to give them is the language. Sometimes people, they're assaulted, in a domestic violence, they're, physically assaulted. But I don't know if it's ego or pride or, like he threw something at me and it hit me here. Did it hurt? No, it didn't hurt. It hurt, didn't it? Like, it caused some pain when it hit? No. Like, even me as a cop, I'm trying to like guide them towards the correct language that we need to hear to be able to do something.
Right.
And you being an educator and being in law enforcement, being around it at least, if that's something that isn't, and I'm not saying coach them to lie, obviously, that's not what I mean. Don't coach them to lie, but give them the right language that we're looking for so we can at least help alleviate a situation for the night, to get an emergency protective order or whatever it is we got to create space, de-escalate them to, and be able to move on from there. Is that something that you guys are doing currently?
Well, that's the challenging part, because every victim is different. Some of them, by the time the police, they just wanted to stop right then. And so once the police get there, they're like, okay, nothing happened. And that's one of the things that I was a huge advocate and so happy that Tarrant County has taken away the, I know you probably heard before, well, she dropped the charges. That doesn't happen anymore. The victim can't go and say, oh, it didn't happen, or I don't want to press charges. The state automatically does that. And I was so relieved, because I was, kind of on the front lines of saying, why does the victim have that's what victims do. Yep. They recant. You can get there and 20 seconds later, they're like, oh no, nothing happened. That's the part of victims. And I will do a whole training on victims and their whys. And sometimes, eventually I started saying it's up to the community. It's up to us to speak up and stand up for them, because they just don't. There's so many reasons of why. Everybody's reason is different, and you could get there and they're like, oh no, the eyeball could be in their hand. They're like, no, it didn't hurt, because honestly, it may not hurt, because they probably experienced something so much worse prior to even calling. Yeah. And so, you know what I mean? So it's like, so you're holding your eye and it doesn't hurt, and they're like, no, I felt worse, Yeah. And that's just the reality of some of the victims. And so they could say that it doesn't hurt. So I think maybe that's an area that can improve as well. Like, okay, if we get there, we see something that happened, we see some type of bruising, regardless if the person's saying it hurt or didn't hurt, that's the guy did something.
Yeah. Yeah. And
And
the physical marks and stuff like that gives police a lot more to go on, where
right.
we can take it right out of his hands. I'm
Yeah,
generalizing
because
here.
more than likely, when you're asking them questions, you're not gonna. Some of them will give you, kind of tell it all because they're in shock that it even happened. But some of them, they won't. They're scared because he may have made threats, in the past, and so they have all this stuff whirling around their heads. Especially if you have a person who is financially dependent on the abuser and they have kids, and he's saying, I'm going to take our kids type of thing. It's just a lot of different factors of why they kind of give you police officers a hard time when they come out. And so I'm glad that we do have that component of where the victim can't call and say, I don't want to press charges. It's not in the victim's hands anymore. And so that kind of helps a lot. But I do understand that um, I'm cognizant of the fact that when the police show up, you are looking for specific things to even do something, and so it makes it hard.
Yeah.
It makes it hard.
Yep. We've and another frustrating thing that we will see often is you're talking about when they say they want to drop the charges and stuff like that. Now, imagine that from the officer's perspective when he's come out to your house 2, 3, 6, 10, 12, 20 times, and you're like, how is this dude still around? Like, I did the work, because us as officers, we don't get to see the follow-up generally,
right?
From large departments anyway. It's all the detectives. And then here you got a detective that starts to put the work in, wants to go get a warrant written. They get through all those processes and they go to talk to the victim. Now they got an uncooperative victim. Case ain't gonna go anywhere, or you get these what we call repeat customers, and you do start to become complacent because you're like, every time I come here, it's just a verbal argument. They're just arguing, and you're wasting my time because you don't do anything. This is kind of the way some police will look at it,
right?
But through the growth of domestic violence training, I think we're learning that there's all these indicators that we need to start keeping track of. And it's not just I showed up to your house and it was a verbal argument. Now I really need to start taking note of the details that have been given to me. Objects were thrown, weapons were presented, things like that. It shows this progression of escalation. And that's important to keep track of. I just don't know, like you said, consistency. I don't know that all departments do that.
Right. They don't. And then another easy component, if the police officers are keeping track, let's say like a house that I've been in 10 times or whatever, that's when you probably want to add, because I know budget wise, now everybody has a social worker on staff, but it would be good to, if it's been more than a few times that a police officer has been in the house, bring a social worker along, and maybe you can get a better, result and save the kids and whoever's in the situation. That's kind of been my take on, using outside resources as far as a social worker or partnering with, One Safe Place, for instance. They could have an advocate come out and, while the officer is talking to the aggressor, the advocate could be talking to the victim and maybe making them feel more comfortable, getting more information from them. And it could also make your job easier in that process.
Yeah. Right.
Because we're not expecting you guys have a lot on your plate, and you're not Superman, even though a lot of kids feel like you are. But you can't do it all.
Some of us try.
You could take a couple social work classes, but unless you're a licensed social worker, it's a lot when you're talking about victims. We have a hard time, and we went to school, did all these stuff that we have to do, and it's not easy. It's not easy. But I do think if police officers and social workers partner together, especially in my county, we really could see some changes on how those calls happen and how the response on both ends.
Yeah, I agree. I try to tell people, I can be trained in 40 hours, annual training 40-hour class
Mm-hmm.
in social work and crisis intervention training and domestic violence. It doesn't make me an expert. It looks good on paper. It looks great. But until I walk a mile in somebody like your shoes who's dealing with this 24/7 at your work, like, you're an expert. I'm not an expert. One, I'm not even educated enough to that level. Like, a social work degree or whatever it's called.
Social work.
Yeah, social work degree. And, so you get to that level, that's just the beginning. That's not even you starting with the real world experience. That's the education that you got. And then you go step into the profession. And now you're getting that level. And it stinks. But as cops, we're the jack of all and master of none. Like, but everybody wants us to be a master in all of it. They want you to be a black belt. They want you to be a doctor. They want you to be, an animal expert. They want you to catch the animal. They don't want you to kill the animal. I'm like, that's a snake and he's in your toilet. Like, I don't know another way to around this without killing it. Because snakes don't bother me.
If it's a snake in my toilet, kill it, please.
If it's a spider, however, I'm not going to even be in your house. So, and I've had those calls.
Oh my God.
Tarantula.
Yeah, I think that I'm very big on collaborating and partnership, and I think a lot of the stuff, especially when it comes to domestic violence and police and even in criminal courts, when I worked Judge Carr's RISE program, one thing I loved about working for Judge Carr is although he's a judge and he can pretty much make all the decisions on his own, he invites social workers, counselors, housing, anybody at the table that can provide service for victims of sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And then start aligning, okay, this person needs this service, this person needs that service. And you have a whole table of treatment going on. And so when it comes to domestic violence, I feel that the same way, everyone should bring their resources together and partner together. Like I said, it's a community thing because honestly, victims are not going to help themselves sometimes. Sometimes they will, they'll surprise you. But for the most part, as we see, they have a hard time doing that. And so it's kind of up to us to say, okay, here's all the resources. And still, we may do all of that. And you're back to square one. But I think for the most part, when you do all of those things, we can either do one or two things. We can help the victim kind of get out of the situation or hold the offender accountable and get them the help and resources that they need so they can no longer offend.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the working together because you're basically making an argument that is the premise of this podcast. And it's in police work, in first responders work. We're very dependent upon ourselves. And the argument that I make is police will never reach their full potential without the community and their help. And the community will never reach their full potential without the police. And the same is said when we start breaking down police work individually. It's an animal call. I can't properly handle an animal call without some collaboration with an animal expert. I can't, I may be on an assault call and there's two pit bulls there that need to be dealt with. Well, I'm trying to deal with that call and I'm dealing with dogs. I don't want to shoot somebody's dog, but I also have to help people. So when you get those situations, collaboration is best. That's how you're going to service everybody the best you can. When it comes to domestic violence, police are not going to be experts. We're going to be safety experts. We're going to make sure everybody stays safe and secure. But when it comes to handling the roots of the problem, we don't have the tools for that. And for us to think that we can handle it separately without involving y'all when it's a serious case, that's the wrong mindset. We need to bring you guys in. We need to have social workers that are game to come out to the field. Once we tell them that the scene's safe, it's no different than the ambulance or the firefighters. And is the scene safe? Yep. Okay. We need you guys to come in now. Let's start mediating and talking and see what our threat level is here. Is this a real case? Whatever the case may be. And we have those domestic violence packets. Those are really good help for police. I'm glad those were made. Those were
be created by people like you, by people like Michelle, that really know, with strangulation and stuff like that. Like, had she never told me the stats, I would have never understood why strangulation was such a big deal. I mean, it makes sense. Yes, obviously, anytime somebody tries to choke your ass, like, that's bad. But
yeah, strangulation, that's a whole nother, step. That's someone that's strangling someone or quote unquote choking, because some people don't call it strangulation. They say, "Oh, he choked me," and I'm like, "That's strangulation."
yeah,
That person is really close to committing a homicide at that point.
yeah. And that's like I said, she told me that, and I'm like, she knew the numbers. Michelle knew the numbers off the top of her head. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I never knew the correlation there between, reaching the escalation of homicide on your partner, or, the worst one is, the murder suicide stuff, which tends to happen quite a bit when it comes to that. And so I want to shift gears a little bit. So you build up your career you to this point. You get your education, you reflect and investigate your own situation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You see some of the shortfalls of policing back then to the adjustments made today, and you start advocating for improvements based on that, which is brilliant. And then at that time you're working for who?
I was working for probation.
Okay. So you're working for can't talk. You're working for probation.
Yes, yep.
And then when is the transition to Cheryl's Voice and where you're at today?
So while I was working for probation, I did the investigation. I said, I realized my mom, she was my hero. She did everything she could possibly do to save me. There was nothing else she could have done to save me at that point. My dad was just relentless. He was stalking before stalking was even a thing. And he was determined. So he wasn't giving up, and he did what he did. And so I saw that she was a hero, and I said, I want to, bring memory to her. And it started, one of the places I saw she got resources that he actually attacked her in front of was the Women's Center. And a counselor came out and saved her at that time. And I immediately said, okay, Tarrant County Women's Center, here I come. And they have what's called Victory Over Violence. It's a 5K. And I asked a couple friends, hey, go with me. I want to walk for my mom, in memory of my mom. And it really started with just maybe 8 of us. Like, I had like 8 friends. I didn't know what I was doing. I was just like, you know what? I'm just doing this, just walking along. And it felt good. And then after that, I did a balloon release in the alley where I was left. And I said, God, I don't know what you want me to do with this, but whatever it is, I'm following through. And the next morning I woke up and God said to me, Cheryl's Voice. And I was like, what is that? What is that? So the next year I did Victory Over Violence team. And I had probably like 80 people that signed up, and the team was named Cheryl's Voice. And so it really started with me supporting the Women's Center. I would donate my birthday, and people would donate money on social media, or they would give me cash, and I would take those donations and give them to the Women's Center, because they do free counseling, and really it's about, trauma therapy, and they do a whole lot of stuff. But my biggest concern was like, I want to make sure that they were having funds for therapy. And so that's how it started, was me doing a 5K walk. And Judge Carr is the one who kind of pushed me to talk more about it. And so he called me into his chambers, and he had a bunch of lawyers, because I think he does like mentoring or something. And they were sitting there, and he was like, Latasha, I want you to come down and share your story to these lawyers, because they're about to be prosecutors. And I feel like, them knowing about domestic violence and survivor is important. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
So I went down and I talked to them, and the feedback is really what made me realize that that's what I was supposed to be doing, was sharing my story. And it just kind of went from there, where more people, I think probably Judge Carvalin told me to a lot of other entities and conferences. And so now I'm a national speaker at this point, but it just started with me, talking in Judge Carr's chambers, talking, at churches that would ask me to come and during Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And it just really took off. I did not want Cheryl's Voice to be a nonprofit. I was speaking at UTA, as a matter of fact, and a lady came up to me and says, the work you're doing is very big and you should be a nonprofit and I'll make it happen. And so she did all the paperwork and kind of made it a nonprofit. I still don't know what I'm doing, to be honest, but because
you and me both.
I really don't she's like, well, are you, because she reached out to me recently. It was like, how's fundraising going? I'm like, it's not, I use my salary to pay for the things I do to serve. I do hope, because one of the things that, it started out with me just speaking. Then another time someone heard me speak, they worked for Amazon and they said, oh, we want to support you. And I'm like, sure, didn't know what that meant. And all of a sudden they start sending me emails with donations from everything from hygiene products to like laptops or Ring cameras. And I'm like, what am I gonna do with all these donations? And starting out, I was able to find a storage unit that was willing to donate a space for us. And so we would pick up these donations and I would have community, I call them community giveaways. We would have community giveaways and it's literally set up like a grocery store. People can come in and get whatever they want for free. However, there's a catch because it's Amazon stuff. Everyone shows up, but they have to be educated. So we educate them. I do a whole workshop teaching them about domestic violence. And that's a way to kind of get people that probably never will walk in some education. And so unfortunately, I lost my storage and our movers. So that's going to be my next mission is, working on trying to find a new place to do that. So we can continue doing that mission because it's just really about educating the community, giving back to the community because all these people need things, but also making sure they understand that domestic violence is real. It's happening every single day. And we have to keep talking about it. And so any way that I can bring memory to the loss of my mom, it's really what it's about for me. Even when I, use my own salary, it's just really the goal is to be able to touch as many people as I can, as long as I'm here to do that.
I got two train paths I'm thinking of taking here. So bear with me while I try to work this thought process out. But your day-to-day for Cheryl's Voice, okay? Let's say you got a case. Walk me through how a case is start to finish. I know they're all unique and they have their own set of circumstances, but right. What's the format? What can a potential victim that may be listening to this or somebody that knows somebody who's a victim can expect, and just kind of guide me down that path?
So basically with Cheryl's Voice, I don't really have cases per se. Sometimes victims do reach out. They'll send me a message on DMs or something like that. And I do the collaboration. I don't reinvent a wheel. So I refer them to One Safe Place. One Safe Place has been such a blessing to Cheryl's Voice. They offer us office space there. And so instead of me, kind of taking on and doing the stuff that they do, I refer to them. I refer to the Women's Center if they need some type of resource that, either or. And so depending on what their need is, they automatically get a referral to one of the entities that are right here in the county. Now, I do sometimes get someone that sends me a message that's on a whole nother state. And so I'll do my research and try to contact whatever entity is close to them and refer them there. The only real thing that is requested of me is educating, doing the workshops. And then I've added the component of the community giveaways, which honestly, I love having those giveaways because I'm able to, get products and things in people's hands that need it, especially Ring cameras. Like I've had several people who are now able to, the abuser will show up and leave by the time the police get there. And so now they have a ring camera. They can say, here he is right here, which is helpful to the police. Right. Which is helpful to the police when they come. They're like, aha, we got you, sir. Don't say you wasn't here because you're on this camera. And so that's the other component that we've added. But a lot of it is just really educating any and everywhere I'm requested to go. And then having those community giveaways to educate, and then connecting people to the resources that are right here. But yeah, that was my biggest thing. Like, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. I'm not in competition with any of the domestic violence entities. Any way that I can support them is who, they know they can call me, which is probably why Michelle Ballin told me.
She did. She's like, I have this girl you need to talk to. You think I'm interesting? Like, she's great. We'll get her on. I was like, hey, my platform is your platform. I said, you just tell me. I was like, as long as they got a topic that they can educate about, and I think it's going to help communities, I was like, it's really easy to get on here. It's not that hard. So I was like, yeah, I'm down. And I trusted her. I said, I was like, if you say she's good, she's good. So, and I'm very happy so far. I'm glad she got you on here.
Thank you. So yeah, I mean, collaboration and partnership and supporting each other is really the fabric of Cheryl's voice. And I keep it that way because, and I feel that, to bring honor to the loss of my mom, I don't want it to be tainted any other way.
All right. So if you're just listening to this show, this isn't live, by the way, I'm just saying for when the recording comes out. If you're listening right now on the screen, if you check this out on Rumble or YouTube, I have Cheryl's voice actually up on the screen. And it is CHERYLSVOICE.org. And I got the website up here. It's very, I like the TCU colors.
Yes, purple is the color of domestic violence awareness.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I just taught you. And what's funny is I have all my stuff is purple, right? And so I even have a purple car. And when people see my car, especially in Fort Worth, they're like, "Oh, you go to TCU?" I was like, "No, did you know the color?" So I start educating them without them even wanting it about domestic violence.
Oh man, yeah,
that was the point of getting a purple car, because I knew people would think TCU.
Yeah, I guess you can definitely see my ignorance on that. My bad, I did not know that. I'm just scrolling through here and just checking out. That must be the judge you were talking about.
Yes, Judge Carr. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah. So you guys can visit this website. And again, I will post the actual address right there so you can see it. Very cool. Man, your website's so clean.
Oh, thank you. Let me give my shout out to the Net. Sarah, she's executive director of the Net. I don't know if you've heard of the Net in Fort Worth, but that's, being, we support each other. And she said, I'll do your, so she did my website, because I have I don't know nothing about it. Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
Shout out to the Net. They did my website, and I'm happy. That's
mine. This is what mine looks like. It's very basic.
But it's cute, though.
It's very simple. I think that's, yours is, no offense to my website person. I still like mine, but yeah. Well.
Cheryl's Voice is a nonprofit organization. Sarah from the Net. The Net, matter of fact, the Net is, they work with victims of sex trafficking. And they also offer one safe place.
I might have to interview that person.
Yeah. You probably won't be able to. You probably have to interview Melissa, because I think Sarah probably has a lot going, but probably Melissa or Jordan. But I will definitely do a email to you.
Well, let them know. I can do multiple. Like I've got a limit of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other guests I can have on this at one time. So, and then also I was going to mention this for anybody that wants to check out Cheryl. Cheryl. I'm calling you Cheryl because I keep reading Cheryl.
Yes,
Latasha is on YouTube. You did a I don't know what to call a promo. Is that what this is?
Yeah, it's kind of like a promo about Cheryl's Voice. It's kind of like a short condense, kind of quickly telling my story and giving more information. Yeah.
Yeah. So you
Feel
can.
like a promo, or I call it a learn about.
Okay. Yeah, I like it. Yeah, a little educational documentary. So I
A
got
short
that.
documentary. I like that one. Let's
Yeah.
go with that.
So I got that up on the screen right now. Let me close this out. All right. So I want to get onto the not that this wasn't serious, but the more sensitive topic of, okay, you being a victim of domestic violence. I want anybody that's listening that has been a part of that or doesn't understand it. That's really more the part. I want people to understand, like, growing up, the trauma, I mean, you still deal with it today. I know you probably do. Most domestic violence victims deal with it their entire lives. But what was the process like for you growing up, knowing what you know?
So growing up, I really didn't. I mean, my grandmother, because I was 18 months. And so I want to highlight that because most people feel like, oh, they're too young, they're not going to be affected. And surprise, I'm affected. At the moment I was born, I had immediate surgery because my mom no one knew that she was being abused, but she was under so much strain and stress where I had to have like the surgery on my belly button. And it just kind of went downhill from there. And so I had weak bones. And, there was a time, 6 months, I was already with a broken hip because my dad assaulted my mother and she dropped me. And so my bones were already weak. So my hip broke and the doctors didn't think I would walk. And fast forward to, having, in school, I was having a lot of suicidal. I was just suicidal for a long time. And I just didn't understand what was going on with me, to be honest. And back then, trauma counseling and children and trauma, that was not even a word. Like, people didn't know really what was going on until it wasn't until I got into college and I realized, I'm like, I need to probably go to therapy. I had someone tell me I need to go to therapy because I was angry a lot and I would stuff a lot of things and not talk about it. And so, yeah, I just, as far as health wise, I suffer with a lot of health issues all throughout my life. With the weak bones, I end up having, I have a disability in my right arm because of it. And it's just been a journey. And I also have what they call a nerve damage in my brain. And sometimes I have random numbness and tingling on the right side of my face. And before I did the whole investigation and stuff and kind of went to the doctors and they connect the dots, I used to just thought it was migraines. I didn't know what was going on. And I would take like Tylenol and stuff. And so that's another reason why it's important to me, because a lot of parents don't understand that if a child has been through some trauma like that, they're probably going to have some health issues. And so attack it, early on. Don't think, oh, it's just a headache. Go ahead and take them in and have them seen. And but like I said, back then nobody knew. So now we know. We're talking about it in this day and time. And so it was not easy. I think from the outside, like people I went to school with, if you ask them, they were like, oh, Latasha's fun. She's this, she's always happy, these types of things. I was the girl who's on student council and the straight A student and all these other things. But really I was just hiding in the pain that I was in. I just didn't want people asking me about my mom. I didn't want, because I remember kids would tease me and like, oh, that's why you raised by your grandmother. They would call me all kinds of names and, it was tough. Most kids have some type of rough childhood anyway, even if you have them both parents. So imagine having trauma on top of that.
Yeah.
And so it was not easy, but I will say, thank God for my grandparents. My grandmother, she's passed away about 3 years now, but man, she was amazing. Like she would, sometimes I would wake up and she was praying over me or something, but those prayers worked. I believe it did. And she always fed into me about, positivity, encouraging me to, do whatever, God's called me to do. And I'm like, I don't know what that is, but I'm going to be okay. And so it wasn't easy. Absolutely not. And it's still a journey. That's something that, and I tell people all the time, grief is something that's a lifelong journey. It gets better. You can choose how you grieve. I had to make a choice, and it was because I had a teacher in elementary school tell me that I would less likely succeed because I was orphaned and raised by my grandparents. And statistics said that I would less likely succeed. And so I had to make a choice at that moment. Would I be a statistic, or would I choose to overcome that? And so that kind of, with the encouragement of my grandparents, that kind of made me hit the ground running on what I want to do in my life. And I'm still running. I don't want to, I have never been in an abusive relationship, and I'm determined to keep that consistent with my life. It's not easy though. I have to background check guys. If you want to date me, you're going to get background checked.
Yeah. I mean,
but you'd be surprised. Like matter of fact, one of my workshops I do, I actually show a real live thing where I met this guy, and it just went like within days. I discovered that he had an extensive history of abuse, and he targeted me. He saw me on the news talking about my story, and he approached me in the mall looking all nice and stuff. And he had a whole plan, and it didn't work. Yes. Oh, it's a good workshop. It's good.
Oh my God.
But yeah, I show like the text messages, the whole conversation, how it escalated, how quickly. And I'm glad I do that, because as an expert, everyone kind of assumes like, oh, no one's gonna, you're an expert. And I'm like, this is how quick a victim. So they kind of look at it differently after I show them that. I'm like, this is how quick and easy. If I wasn't due diligent and I just believed that this guy, was a good guy because he presents well.
Yeah.
He looks well. I looked him up. He had a great career. He had, Maserati or whatever. He was doing well for himself. But because of the work that I do, I dig deeper and beyond that. And so very quickly, I call it my 7-day trial. Very quickly, I was able to discover he was a monster. And I use him in my presentations.
Man, and it's crazy that these domestic violence actors they're master manipulators and control freaks. And sounds like he's going for a trophy.
Yes. And that was like for him. And that's really what pissed him off so quickly once he realized that I wasn't buying, I wasn't kind of falling into the rabbit hole. He got really pissed off, and it was because the ultimate prize is to get someone like me, she knows about domestic violence. She has her, if I can trick her into falling into these web of lies, I've won the ultimate prize, like you said.
Yeah. And he knows it, just on to the next once he's done with you. So it, or he'll just try to hold that level of control for as long as he can. But that's the consistent thing that I've seen in my training experiences. Just this manipulation. It's sickening to see some of the ways these guys, and I say guys because generally speaking, that's usually what it is.
Right.
But let's not forget the lessons we learned from Johnny Depp. Guys can be victims too. So
guys can be victims. We have seen in Tarrant County, we've actually had a few males, men killed by their partner, homicide. So that men definitely can be victims. Unfortunately, they don't reach out. And I wish they do, especially when it comes to like verbal abuse and stuff like that. I'm like, guys, come on, it's not healthy. But it's hard to get a man to open up and say that they're in something toxic. That's a whole nother challenge.
I just was reviewing a case last week. Dude, she shot at him. Now, luckily, she didn't hit him, but she shot at him. She wasn't playing. And I guess there's just been a long history of him. He had been calling on her, she's over here tearing the house up. She's over here doing this. She's over here doing that. Somehow she got a hold of a gun. Luckily, it didn't connect, but I think that was his wake-up call.
Hopefully it was, because sometimes, if you think women don't leave, men. I mean, I've had a man, she done chased him around with lighter fluid, threatened to kill him, and all these things.
Jeez.
Police come out, and then he decides he wants to marry her.
Oh, The other one that I saw, the guy's walking in the street. They just got done arguing, and he's like walking to his car, and she took her car. It's like, boom, just sandwiched him. Yeah. I think he lived. I hope he lived, but I think he lived. But yeah, he got jacked up from that.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's, and I'm an equal opportunist. I'm man or woman. I don't care your color or skin. It doesn't matter to me. If you commit domestic violence, I'm posting it. So on the Cheryl's Boys Facebook page, I usually post, domestic violence cases that make it to the news and stuff like that. Like, I don't care who you are. I'm going to light you up on my page.
Nice. So you do the education portion, with the victims and whatnot. One of the things that I think Michelle and I talked about that you do that you've talked about doing or something to that effect. So I apologize. I don't fully remember exactly how she said it. The thing that stuck out to me, she said you have tried to reach out or do reach out to the actors, the ones that are committing the domestic violence, to try to give them some sort of education.
So my job that helps fund Cheryl's Boys, my 9 to 5 is I work for Tarrant County Judge Cummings Court with the Domestic Violence Diversion Program. And that is working with the offender of domestic violence. And I get asked all the time, like, what?
No, I think it's brilliant.
Well, honestly, it wasn't my idea. It was literally God's, because I was like, I don't want to do that. But I did take time to think about it. And I said, it's approaching domestic violence in a holistic manner. I already work with victims, and children, and kind of working in that wheelhouse, which is what I'm passionate most about. But getting a hold of the offender, holding them accountable, and getting them the help that they need is the last piece of the puzzle, to be honest. And so although there are so many people that kind of feel like, well, just put them in jail, that doesn't work, honestly, because there's something going on. I remember seeing one case where the guy, he was fully accountable. And that's rare, because honestly, a lot of times the abuser comes in and they're kind of like, she was drunk. I could write a story and tell you and they all say the same thing. She was drunk. She got mad. She got an attitude. It's always the same thing. And I'm just like, okay, let me hold you accountable. But this guy, totally different. He came in and he's like, emotional about it. He was like, I don't know why I attacked him. And he gave me exactly what he did to his wife. And that's full accountability right there. And he said, I hate myself because I'm turning into my father. And so then because I do a full interview with them, and I'm like, well, tell me about, how was your childhood with your mom and dad? Dad was a monster, with his mom, abusive to him, took him to drug houses, just a whole host of things. And you think he's ever been to therapy? No. You think he's ever addressed any of his trauma? No. So when he had whatever conversation him and his wife had at the time, he had this huge moment of where he just snapped into automatically doing something that he saw growing up and didn't even realize that was going to happen. And so that goes back to, you got to deal with your traumas. People get into these relationships and they have all these broken pieces and they're not putting them together, or they're not healing from them. And so getting them the help that they need, holding them accountable is really important. Now, his story is really like one of a million, to be honest. Most of them are very, cocky and attitude and I shouldn't be here, she should be here type of thing. And it takes a lot of work me and my other coworker have to do to hold them accountable, get them to, take their classes seriously, to go to therapy, to do all this inner work. But the important part of that is if we can get them to stop, even if they're not with the same person anymore, hopefully we won't see someone else that they've, abused in the system. And so the whole goal is to, get them to get their children help if they have kids, and also get the help that they need. So during that, we can kind of break up this domestic violence in the city one by one, by person by person.
I think you would significantly increase your odds of solving the issue by at least pointing to a cause or multiple reasons for why the offender is doing what they're doing. Like, you're like you said with the last guy, your father was an abuser. So maybe, I know it seems like it's common sense, but sometimes you need somebody else to point it out to you, to like start to connect the dots. And
Yeah.
oh shit, like that's why, like that was my, you know, impression of how a guy's supposed to treat his
Exactly.
significant other, because it's his dad. So
Right. Exactly. And so
taking the time, taking the time to point that stuff out to them. I think even if you don't succeed at that moment, if you don't succeed with that case, now they know, and now they've got their own process. Everybody's got their own process of dealing with their own drama and trauma and all that stuff. So,
right. It takes time, but
just like with you.
Sure.
Yeah,
it takes time, but for sure. I mean, occasionally we have the ones that probably are going to reoffend because they come in like, I had the perfect childhood. I've never witnessed, I never did. And you know, and it's all the victim's fault. And I'm like, yeah, you're not going to be in this program. You're going to jail. Like we're not doing it, you know? So it really takes a lot of work. It takes, you know, holding them accountable. But I can say that and these are first time offenders, by the way, these are not, you know, repeat offenders.
okay.
But this is their first time being arrested for domestic violence. And then they have to do the work. They have to show that they're making change, and they have to show that they realize, you know, and majority of them, like 99.9% of them, witnessed abuse as a kid and never was treated, never did therapy, never even talked about it, type of thing. And then they end up in the court system.
Okay. In your experience, does it seem like in domestic violence, when it comes to social workers and stuff, is it very female dominated?
Actually, as of late, I know UT Arlington is having more and more guys that are coming out. But for the most part, yes, women are dominating the social work field. And that's probably because of the stigma, right? You know, a lot of times, I mean, I don't want to be a social worker. That's what girls do. And then you have men who feel like social workers don't make enough money.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, you know, like with the case where you're talking about trying to get the offenders to see where these paths came from in their childhood or wherever it is. They already have obviously issues with females. And so I'm just wondering, would that same approach work better? Would it work worse with a male social worker? But I honestly, I don't know that I know any male social workers. That's why I started thinking about it. I was like, damn, everybody I know in domestic violence and stuff like that is a woman. Yeah.
Well, you'd be happy to know that I not only have a male social worker, a licensed social worker counselor, but he's a black man. And it's very rare, but I found one.
You got him. You got the unicorn.
I found one, and he's excellent. But there are more men. And matter of fact, when I graduated, there were quite a few guys who had graduated with social work degrees. So there are more men who are starting to want to be social workers because of some of the youth stuff that they want to be active in and those types of things. So it is helpful, but I think we're still probably going to have more women. That's just the nature of social work, to be honest. But I am glad to see more men that are, you know, graduating with social work degrees and seeing that, hey, you can be very helpful to a man. I personally have not had. Well, I do. I have, you know, sometimes it's a culture thing. You know, if someone has an issue with women in their culture, like a woman telling them in authority, it's like a huge problem for them. And I have to, you know, kind of set them straight sometimes. But for the most part, you know, I kind of feel like even when I worked at the sheriff department as a jailer, you know, firm but fair, as long as I'm consistent and I treat them as human. I don't have anyone that's coming at me disrespectfully, but occasionally, you know, you're gonna have someone that does. But yeah, I do think that it would be helpful if more men did want to be social workers, but that's just, you know, until they up the salary, probably.
Yeah. Now, is the program when you're talking to the offenders, is that working? Is it worth doing, in your opinion? Is it something we need to throw more energy at? Is it something that is working just fine?
So the domestic violence diversion program has a really low recidivism rate, like extremely low. So I do think it works. I think that in partnership with, you know, the entities that we refer to for the BIP classes and making sure we send them to therapy and holding them accountable for that, and kind of monitoring that is what helpful. And then the fact that they understand that if you don't do these things and make real change, you're going to reoffend. You're going to be, back in jail. And a lot of these guys had never seen a jail cell. Like, they've never been in legal trouble. And so some of them just going to jail shook them up, and they're like, oh my God, how did I get here? So I do see the benefits. But of course, can't save everyone. You're going to have some people who just don't get it, maybe too far gone to, really, even though this is their first time getting arrested by police, probably not their first time offending.
Oh,
and
for sure.
So they blame the entire world at some point, and it's just going like this over their head. And so small percentage of them will probably not make it even to succeed, or they're probably gonna, if they did like fake it all the way to the end, they're gonna reoffend. And so, but that's a really small percentage. Since I've been there, I think I've only had like one case, one person that reoffended, and that's
huge.
Yeah.
That's in statistical standards, that's a very significant number, because that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen very often when it comes to rehabilitation, and like you said, the recidivism and stuff like that. That's it just takes a lot of work, and it takes me. What I found is shining light on, even though they may be done the worst thing to this person, for another component of them, they love their kids. And so when you start talking about how this affects your kids, and do you want your daughter to be with a man like you? Oh man. Mm-hmm. It's like taking that mirror to their face, and that's when they kind of hone in on what's happened and really make change, is when you start doing that. Now, if you have somebody that don't really care about the kids, it's a hard problem. But it's huge coming from someone like you who's a survivor.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The perspective's much different than somebody that just got their social work, degree and is coming in based off of, what they've learned versus what they've experienced.
Right. And, a lot of my guys, and I have women too, but a lot of them, they very narcissistic when they come in my office. So I don't even have to share my story, because they've already looked me up because they got a little attitude. And so they Googled me, and they, all of my stuff is there, which is fine.
Yeah.
And so they come in with this whole like, oh man, she's really going to let me have it. Yep, I am.
Oh man. That's so, I think I'm sharing this, and I think I spelled it wrong. I forgot the L. Save. There we go. I was like, because you were talking about your social media, so I popped your social media up there, and that's spelled correct.
It's I am Cheryl, CHERYLS.
Okay, I got dyslexic. I didn't have the L to begin with, so that's where I really screwed up. Cheryl's voice. There we go. Oh, yeah, look at this. I screwed up on this one too.
I didn't even notice that you asked me to look at it, and I was like, sure, it's fine.
Yeah, I just happened to glance at it. I was like, oh, I'm dyslexic. I got my letters backwards. Okay, so if you're listening to this, Cheryl's voice is spelt like you would think it would be, CHERLYS.
Why?
Yes, and I spelled it incorrectly 2 times.
Yeah, I'm spelling it wrong. I'm like, why is it spelled CHERYLS?
Because I'm an idiot. Yeah, I did it wrong again.
CHERYL.
Yeah, why? I think it's not me. I think it switched it back. It didn't save it. That's what happened. I didn't save it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm like, I just fixed it.
CHERYLS voice.
I know you can't see it on your end, but when you edit this stuff, there's a save and there's a cancel button, and I twice hit cancel, like a morning.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Instead of hitting save, like my brain said go to save, and I hit cancel. So anyway, now that I got your social media stuff right, I am Cheryl's voice. I am Cheryl's voice.
Girl's voice.
I'm falling apart,
Perfect.
and I haven't even drank today. So normally when we do this, like I was rushing, I got stuck in traffic trying to get to it. We had planned this for 5:30 and I was 10 minutes late because I was rushing trying to get home. Sorry about that.
It's
Usually
okay.
very
I figured
prompt.
I was like, I didn't even look at your email until I saw. I was like, he probably got stuck in traffic when you wasn't there.
Yeah. I'm very prompt military, so I'm usually 15 minutes early. So when I'm late, it bugs the hell out of me, and so I'm like, I'm trying to give you every notification I can. Like stuck in traffic, almost home.
Yeah, it's fine. I'm very prompt too. I think this is a part of the work that we do. We like to be on time.
Yes. All right. So we've talked about Cheryl's voice, talked about your experience, your education. I think, we've humanized you. That's what I like to do. I like to humanize my guests so people kind of understand you, where you came from. What do you do for fun, and what do you do to actively conquer the post-traumatic stress that comes from your situation?
Therapy, crisis counsel. I say the two C's, crisis counseling. I'm very rooted in my faith, and therapy. I would be nowhere without going to therapy. Now at this point in my life, I go like once a month. I think people feel like, okay, I don't have to go to therapy anymore. Yeah, I do, because the work that I'm doing on a constant basis, I'm always getting dumped on. Sometimes I just have tough moments. May is Mother's Day, my mom's birthday. My grandmother passed away in May. It's just, May is tough. And so, having that, recognizing that, and not allowing myself to just, get depressed is why I plug into therapy. Fun. I love music. I love music. My favorite artist is Babyface and Johnny Gill. So anytime most people that know me know that I am at the concert. Anytime Babyface is here, I'm there. You would think that I'm a super fan, because I am.
Yeah, I was just listening to Babyface today. When Can I See You Again?
Oh,
love that song.
Yeah, listen, if you've never seen him live,
never,
you gotta go. Like, he is absolute best in concert. So I go to a lot of concerts. I think the last one I went to was New Edition.
New Edition, yeah.
But I love all kinds of music. I really want to go see George Strait, but I can't afford George Strait. I don't know who can afford George Strait, but I'm hoping one day somebody, loves me enough to give me a ticket, because I'll never get to see him. I guess I'll have to listen to his music on the radio, because George Strait loves his ticket prices.
Yeah, I have to wait till an event comes into our city to work it. So then I get to see it. I get to see it while I'm getting paid.
So I need you to, work it and then ask them, hey, can you also give me a ticket? For me,
sneak you in the back door.
George Strait. That's like a dream come true to see George Strait. I love him. So I listen to all genres of music, except for heavy metal, really. Not really a big fan of that, but you can't miss me with music. I love karaoke. I go to different places to do karaoke. But most of the time it's like music or plays, musicals. Right now, I haven't been to a play in a while, because a production company reached out to me and asked to share my story. So Cheryl's Voice has a play coming up next month. And so that'll be a play that I'm going to as my own.
Really?
Yes.
Where is this going to be at?
It's in Fort Worth, because of course I'm from Fort Worth. So it had to be in Fort Worth. It's at the Scott Theater.
Theater.
It's in the Scott Theater in Fort Worth. If anyone wants information, they can pull it up on social media. It's called I'm Cheryl's Voice, Cheryl's Voice play. But I'm not in it. Matter of fact, the lady, again, I don't know why, people can hear me somewhere and they will say, hey, I want to do this for you. And so that's what happened. She heard me speak and she said, I see you at all the plays, because when I say I go to a lot of them, I go to a lot of them. They would think I'm a part of the team or something. And she said, would you mind if I share your story in a play? And I'm like, sure. And honestly, I thought it was going to be like a little high school type of play. This is a whole production. I didn't realize that until just yesterday. I'm like, oh, this is a big deal. Y'all have like real actors and singers. Like, they're going to really be telling my life story.
Yeah. They should have
So,
like followed you around your house for a few months, like to get in character.
well, and so it's gonna be kind of based on like when I did the investigation. So I was younger and stuff, and so that's kind of cool.
Okay.
And so it's really just highlighting domestic violence on all ends, and so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, for fun, I love music. I love going out. I love any type of live band. I'm there to enjoy some good music. That's kind of like my getaway, my escape. I used to write lyrics when I was like lyrics from the radio. I don't know if you're. Oh, you did graduate when I did.
Yeah.
So yeah, back in school, I never got to still have a binder full of lyrics, and I would like sit there on the radio and record the song, and then I'll play it, and I would write all the lyrics down.
Yeah, because memorizing music back in the day was important because you wanted to impress your friends that you knew all the words. You know,
exactly. And then people would be like, "Hey, you got this song?" And I'm like, "Boosted song." Like, here you go. You can borrow my lyrics. You better give me back my lyrics. You got to give me $5 so I can rewrite them. You know,
right. Yep. Yeah. I grew up in the time of burning CDs and stuff like that in high school.
Yes, I love making mixed CDs, and I did all that. But over time, what I do for fun is change. So, like when I was younger, I would write poetry to kind of escape from things. And I can't remember last time I wrote poetry, but I was really good. I wrote poetry and lyrics from songs, and so now it's just going out having fun. I try to dedicate one day in the weekend to where I'm just either taking myself out to have a drink or listening usually wherever I'm doing that, they better have a live band or some really good music or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, or I'm going to a concert, which if it's a good concert, I'm going to be there.
I got you. Okay. All right. I kind of want to finish it up with in the direction you're going. It's very positive. It's very, it's good work. Obviously, recidivism's going down, and you're having a positive impact. You're connected with One Safe Place. They've provided you a spot to work, which is amazing.
I have a Salesforce office is right there.
So, with all of that, how can we improve? What would you like to see in a perfect world before you leave this earth? Where would you like us to be at, and how do we get there?
Oh, well, I would like to eradicate domestic violence, and Judge Cummins listening to this, you're gonna be like, Latasha, I told you, as long as two people are together. Yep. But I still say, if it was up to me, domestic violence would not exist. Everybody would be in healthy, happy relationships. They would argue in even tones, and they would just love on each other and love their kids. That's what I want. Like, I hope by the day that a guy calls me home, that happens. But just kind of always bust my bubble when I say that.
Hey, it's an optimistic point of view, and I like that because I'm an eternal optimist. It drives some of my coworkers nuts because they'll be complaining about something. I'm like, but what about this? Like, think about it this way. Like, there you go. You're complaining again. I was like, give me one positive. Tell me something positive out of what you just complained about.
Exactly. So that's really, I just don't want another child to go through what I went through. I mean, no child should have to go, lose their mother so early. I mean, my mom was young. Like, she was 15. She got pregnant and married 15, and she was killed by 17. And so if she was still here, she would probably be like my best friend, because I'm, 39, and she would be like 15 years older than me. So we would really be close in age. Yeah. And so I was robbed of that. And I never want another child to be robbed of, losing their mother and father. It's so unfair. And, the fact that, like, of course, my grandmother passed. And so it's like, I have no one, luckily I have, some friends that have surrounded me. But, the reality is, when I look at it, I don't have anyone left because of someone being selfish and took that from me. And so I don't want someone else to, and that's why I work so hard, because I don't want them to experience that.
While you were saying that, I thought of, which grandparent raised you? Was it your mom's grandma, or was your mom's mom? Do you have a relationship with your dad's parents at all?
Well, they passed away, but no, sort of. So they would come around occasionally when I was a kid, and my grandmother, I will say, man, she was a heck of a woman because she did not say anything bad about my dad. She did not prevent them from visiting and those types of things. It wasn't until I did the investigation when I discovered a whole lot of stuff that happened on their side of the family that I was very heartbroken about, and discontinued all communication at that point. But it wasn't because my grandmother, she never did tell me.
Okay. I was just curious. I'm like, because that would be.
But yeah, growing up, a couple of them would come by, but they weren't, and that kind of made sense on why they were not coming by or trying to be consistent with the relationship.
Yeah.
From when I did do the investigation, discovered all the stuff that they did. It made sense at that point. But so no, I don't have a relationship.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious about that. I started thinking, I was like, raised by your grandma, like, man, that'd be kind of odd to be raised by the grandma of your dad, Yeah,
they didn't want me anyway, to be honest. So
yeah. Yeah, I hear you. All right. Well, before we finish this, I think we hit a natural conclusion. Is there anything you want to put out there? Anything else that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
I think you covered it. I mean, I talked about the Show's Voice plays coming up. I would love to see you guys if y'all can come to Fort Worth. I know most people go to plays in Dallas, but I'm a Fort Worth girl, so we're having it right here in the city.
All right.
So I would love to see you guys there for that, and just continue supporting the work that I do. It's very important. Especially like I said, I literally just lost our storage unit. So I'm like, okay, I need to find a new, because I want to continue doing the giveaways. I love our giveaways that we give to the community. But I gotta have space for that stuff because it can't go in my garage. It's too much.
Well, maybe through some of the connections on this podcast, we can find you some storage place. I think my buddy Gerald Kern, he runs a food. What do they call that? Like when you give food away. It's not a food shop. It's
like a pantry.
Yeah, like a pantry type thing where they give out free food to needy people. Needy people. That doesn't sound right. To people that need food. They don't have food. I don't like saying needy.
With gas prices, everybody, I need to go out to the pantry and get some food.
Yeah. But he runs that. It's a private business type thing.
Okay.
Type of nonprofit. But I would imagine if anybody's got the connections to find you a storage unit, it'd be him. So after I get done with this podcast and I edit it and all that good stuff, I'm going to send it to him and be like, hey, take a listen.
Thank you. That would be so helpful because it started out like when Amazon started giving me donations. I just walked into a storage unit place and I told them my story and I was like, can y'all donate a space to us? And at first they couldn't donate it. So I was paying for it, but I couldn't. I was like, okay, I got bills. I can't keep paying for this out of pocket. And so I talked to the owner and he agreed. And so we've had a storage unit for a couple of years, but they went out of business. And so just recently. And so I'm like, okay, crap, what am I going to do now?
Yeah.
Doing that and, the moving truck, which I was paying for that. And so they were helping me, getting me the truck to pick up the items because Amazon, all they do is donate it. You got to have a truck, pick it up, people pick it up and then put it in storage. So
yeah, I'm in the same boat as you. I got this podcast going and what started out with a $2,000 budget agreed upon with my wife, she supported me through this idea, grew quickly into like 13 grand. And now she's like, listen, if after a year you're not getting some sort of sponsorships or something, it's got to go. Like, because it's not just that 13 grand. And then now it's the putting the episodes out. It's the software that's involved. These are all monthly fees. So it's compounding. So
listen, my salary has to pay my bills. So God, you're going to have to send a blessing.
Yep.
Or Cheryl's Voice giveaways are going to be on the bench. So. And I would hate to, not, because matter of fact, I just got an email, I think last week, and they said, hey, we got donations for you. I said, I'm sorry. I don't have the money to buy, get the truck and I have nowhere to put it. So And they said, well, as soon as you get it, together, please let us know. We want to give to you. And I'm like, oh,
okay. Well, I will do my work, and I will try to at least get you networked with people that know better than me.
That would be great. Thank you so much.
Hey, I like to
Thanks for
support.
inviting me. I mean, Michelle's I'm not surprised. She's queen of voluntola. She's like, I want to introduce you with this person. And same as you, I think just this morning I may have looked at yours. I didn't even really vet you like I usually do.
But you trust Michelle. Yeah. Yep. I was the same. And she's married to somebody that I'm very familiar with, to the police department and whatnot. And I was like, well, if he thinks she's okay, then I can trust her. And then I got connected to Michelle from my sponsor, Impact Tactical. Yeah. So they got us connected. And that's what I love about my sponsor is they're so well connected that they're getting me people to interview. It's not that I can't get people to interview. I want people outside of police work. I feel like I've heavily depended on my police career to have police guests, which is great. People love that stuff. But
I'm going to really connect you with the net because they do some great work. I mean, not only do they help with victims of sex trafficking, they also have a Worthy Co store where they hire victims of trafficking. So it kind of gives them that boost of self-esteem. Yeah. And then Ty Bowden, he does the other side of that, which is stopping the traffickers, where they do like those calls to kind of bait them in or place ads and stuff.
Like the Chris Hansons.
Yeah, exactly. Chris Hansen. Ty is Chris Hansen. But yeah, they have a whole operation that they have going. I was on the board of the net, but with my dissertation, I had to step down for a little bit. So, but yeah, they do some great stuff. So I will send you an email and connect you with them. I think you'll love to interview them.
That'd be great. I appreciate it. Well, this was a great podcast. We went an hour and a half. Great time. Yep. So it went smooth. I think we hit all the information, and I appreciate you being on, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. You have a good day.
You too.